Please join me in Gasho. Namandobs, 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 namandobs.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Eshinni-ko service. Lady Eshinni-ko was born 1182 and she passed away in 1268. She is the mother of Jodo Shinshu Buddhist women and the wife of Shinan Shonin. Lady Eshinni was foremost a devotee of the Nembutsu teaching. She was born as the daughter to Miyoshi Tamenori, a landowner in the Kabuki region of Ichiko. Lady Eshinni married Shinan Shonin in 1210 when he was exiled along with other Nembutsu followers for propagating the Nembutsu teaching in Kyoto. During his exile, Shinan Shonin was stripped of his Buddhist title and given the name Yoshizane Fuji. Together with Shinan, Eshinni gives birth to 6 children and would accompany him to the Kanto area, followed by a return to Kyoto. Later in life, Eshinni would return to the Ichiko area to tend to property which her family owned. In 1956, a 5-tiered stone pagoda was found and is said to have been erected by Eshinni-sama in memory of her husband. The stone pagoda is standing next to a kobushi tree, or magnolia, which has been dated to be 600 years old. The kabushi tree, or magnolia, which has been dated as 600 years old, and the Kuboshi Grove is a memorial for Lady Eshinni, was established on the site by the Honganji Buddhist Women's Federation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we will start with the sutra chanting.
Okay. So during the chanting, 皆さんおはようございます。本日は、この絵師にこ追悼法要並びに、婦人会追悼法要に、ようこそ参加していただきました。後ほど絵師に様の生涯についてもう少し、詳しく、伝えますが、絵師にさんはもちろん、皆さんご存知のように、親鸞上人の奥様であり、婦人会の、代表される方というふうに考えられています。またそのことについては後ほどお話の中でされますが、しますが、まず今は言行、三部上並びに三仏下をいただきたいと思います。三仏下を唱えるときには婦人会の追悼法要なので、お浄土に先立たれた婦人会の方々の名前を画面に出しますので、それをお勤めの途中皆さん見ていただければ結構だと思います。So we will begin with the sutra chanting, and we're going to be chanting the Sambujo, which I think I believe I've sent to you. It's also on your screen. And then following that, we'll be chanting the Sambutsuge. Now, during the chanting of the Sambutsuge, instead of having the words of the chant on, I'm going to be putting up the names of the Fujinkai members who have passed away. There are actually 183 members in all. This is over the years. Plus, at the very end, you'll also see the name of Mrs. Fusako Takeuchi, who just passed away at Rosewood Manor. So her name I just included on the list at the very end today. So again, as we chant, I will put up the names of the Fujinkai members who have passed away. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. Excuse me for a second. We respectfully welcome Amida Buddha to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. We respectfully welcome Shakyamuni Buddha to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. We respectfully welcome the Buddha of all times and places to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy.
냐
上上移動がご下落安のお仏神妙是が心象法図がの非力症状よ自も世相知恵無下上領子孫知が信行計量心志食道具中願用生じ人数下ナマナブナマナブナマナブナマナブナマナブナマナブラニシグドグ平等性祭道図母大師往生安なごNamanavs, namanavs, 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 namanavs. At this time, we will be reading the, where is that? Oh. Buddhist Women's Association Creed, and we're going to read it both in English and Japanese. And I've asked Jeannie to lead us in the English reading. And Shinobu-san, if you could unmute yourself now, and Shinobu-san will lead us in the reading of the Japanese. So we'll read the English first. Jeannie, can I ask you to lead us, please?
Buddhist Women's Association Creed. We Buddhist women are to follow the path of Shinran Shonin, who lived the life of seeking the truth, to be awakened to the dignity of human life, to listen to the primal vow of Amida Buddha, and to live the life of Nembutsu as the guardians of Dharma. 1. We shall continue listening to the Dharma and live each and every day in the light of compassion. 2. We shall create the home of Nembutsu and nurture Buddha's children. 3. We shall follow the teachings of universal brotherhood and stretch the wheel of Dharma friends.
仏教婦人会綱領。私たち仏教婦人は真実を求めて生き抜かれた親鸞上人の都をしたい。人間に生まれた尊さに目覚め、深く如来の本願を聞き開き、実りの母として念仏生活に勤しみます。一つ、ひたすら門法に努め、御光に照らされた日々を送ります。一つ、念仏に香る家庭を築き、仏の子供を育てます。一つ、世界は皆兄弟の教えに従い、実りの友の輪を広げます。
Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。 Namandobs, 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 Namandobs. Next, we'll have, I guess, the Dharma talk and my Dharma talk. And because of the all Zoom format, I'm going to be trying something a little different today. Let me just, what's this? I'm going to try something a little different today. And what it is a video present, or not a video, slideshow presentation. Can you all see this okay on your screen? 皆さん見えますか? Okay. This is a presentation for today's Eshinni-sama Memorial Service, Eshinni-ko Memorial Service. これは本日の追悼法要ということで、今日は Zoom という形で撮ってますので、このスライドショーを皆さんに少し紹介しようと思いました。So because of the Zoom presentation, I decided to try out this slideshow, see how it works. If it works okay, you could give me feedback, or if it doesn't work, let me also know. As I mentioned, because of the special observance today of being the Fujinkai Memorial as well, and this is why we have it as a joint service today, English and Japanese. So I will be going back and forth between English and Japanese during my presentation. So, この石兄様と親鸞上人の関係なんですが、まず最初にEshinni-koがなぜ大切であるかというと、やっぱり親鸞上人の奥様であったというわけなんですね。で、それを、話す前にちょっと親鸞上人の生涯も共に、同時に振り返って、それから、関係を、詳しく説明したいと思います。So, in order to understand Eshinni-sama's context, of course, she is very important to us, not only as the wife of Shinran Shonin, but in fact, one could also say she was an individual who verified a lot about our teachings itself. So in order to get that little background, I just wanted to start off a little bit with our founder, Shinran Shonin himself, and just sort of get you into context of where they were when they met. So, of course, Shinran Shonin, just earlier, Jeannie talked about the birth of Eshinni-sama. So, Shinran Shonin himself was born in 1263 and 1262. 1272. Sorry, 1272. And he was born in the southern part of Kyoto. But at the age of 9 years old, he entered the monastery. Now, you might think that's a very young age to enter a monastery, but things happened a lot quicker back then. And there are a number of explanations why he entered, but it's said at the age of 9, he entered the monastery. で、Eshinni様の話に行く前にですね、少し親鸞上人の生涯も、一緒に触れたいと思いますので、まず親鸞上人がですね、1173年に、京都の日野というところで誕生されたわけなんですね。で、9歳で親鸞上人が、実は、得度してですね、比叡山に入ることになったんです。このなぜ9歳で、得度したかということにはさまざまな説明がありますが、これはEshinni様のことで簡単に親鸞上人を紹介するだけです。で、9歳で、得度を受ける、映像ですね。So this is just an image, drawing of Shinran receiving the Tokudo at the age of 9. And when he received his ordination, it was said that there's a legend that goes along that says that Shinran was taken by his uncle to receive this special ceremony at a temple called Shorein. And there, the headmaster, his name was Jian. Jian was also a very prominent monk within Mount Hiei, Tendai school Buddhism. And when Shinran and his uncle arrived at the temple, it was said to be late at night. So the headmaster Jian said, "Why don't we do the ceremony first thing in the morning?" To which Shinran, at the age of 9, was supposedly quoted as saying this poem: "Thinking there is a tomorrow, the evening cherry blossom is blown away by the evening winds." So he's talking about the impermanence of things, and the headmaster Jian was so impressed that he conducted that ceremony on that evening. この9歳の頃の親鸞はですね、奨励院というところで慈円という、天台宗の僧侶の下で、得度されたと言われています。And so here's a couple of pictures of Shinran supposedly practicing. Of course, we're talking about almost 800 years ago, so there's no photographs or actual diagrams. So this is actually from a children's book of the life of Shinran. And so that's why it's in this sort of cartoon form illustration. This is actually produced by the Honganji itself. But what's important here is that Shinran Shonin, when he was on Mount Hiei, we know that he was what we call a doso, or practicing monk. And the reason why we know this, and this is where Eshinni comes in, is because of a series of letters that were found from Eshinni to her youngest daughter, Kakushinnin. Kakushinnin was the person who looked after Shinran in his latter years when he spent the latter years in Kyoto. And so in Mount Hiei, there are different ranks of monks. And one of them, the doso, is called the common practicing monk. So we know a little bit about Shinran's life on Mount Hiei thanks to Eshinni. Without that letter, we would never have known what Shinran was doing in his early years. で、この親鸞上人がですね、比叡山で、道僧という僧侶の位持ってたわけなんですね。で、このことはですね、なぜ親鸞様が関わるかというと、親鸞上人が亡くなった後にですね、親鸞様が末娘の覚親人にですね、何通の、手紙を出しているわけなんです。というのは、親鸞上人の晩年はですね、親鸞様と離れ離れに暮らしてたわけです。親鸞様は自分のふるさと、新潟の方の越後に戻られ、親鸞上人は晩年京都に過ごされたわけですね。で、その京都で、親鸞上人の世話をしてたのが末娘の覚親人という方ですね。で、親鸞上人が亡くなった後に、いろんな方が親鸞上人を忍び、その覚親人のところに、訪ねるわけなんです。そこで、覚親人が親鸞様と手紙のやり取りをするわけなんですね。自分のお父様についてもう少し知りたいということで。で、その中で、親鸞様が親鸞上人が若き頃、比叡山で道僧というくらいの僧侶であったということをそこに書かれているので、そこで初めて私たちが親鸞上人が比叡山時代でどういう修行をされてかということが、分かるようになるわけなんです。で、まあこの、本願寺の絵本の中から出してきたわけなんですが、この親鸞上人の姿ですね。So after Shinran spent 20 years on Mount Hiei, of course, he came down from the mountain. He was having difficulties attaining the enlightenment or satori that one wants to attain. And so after spending 20 years, he came down And he was sort of having what you would consider a midlife crisis, if you will. And he went to a temple in the middle of Kyoto called Rokkakudo. This temple was founded by Prince Shotoku many centuries before Shinran came. But Shinran had a deep reverence for this Regent Prince Shotoku. And so he went there, and the main figure of this temple was what we call a Kannon Bosatsu, or Bodhisattva of compassion. And Shinran actually went down there to do a 100-day vigil to think of what he should do going into the future. And it said on the 95th morning that Shinran Shonin had a vision. And that vision was of this Kannon Bodhisattva coming down. And according to one of the legends, it is said that this Kannon Bodhisattva says, I will come as an incarnate and I will become your wife. And so we gather from this that Shinran viewed upon his wife, Eshinni-sama, as in fact an incarnation of this Kannon Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva of compassion. で、この、今出てる、絵はですね、親鸞上人が比叡山で20年間、天台宗の僧侶として修行されるわけなんですが、どうもその修行をしても自分が悟りを得られなかったわけなんです。そこでですね、親鸞上人がもう諦めて、比叡山から降りようと決心するわけなんです。で、その時に100日の間ですね、京都の中央にある六角堂にこもるわけなんです。で、そこでですね、親鸞上人が、これから先どうするべきかを、瞑想するわけなんですが、この95日目の朝にですね、親鸞が夢を見ると言われるんですね。で、この夢の中には、この六角堂というのは、聖徳太子が建てられたお寺で、その祀られているのは観音菩薩なんですね。で、その95日の朝に親鸞上人が、この観音菩薩の姿を見るわけです。で、観音菩薩が親鸞のもとに来て、まず一つ伝えるのが、法然上人のもとに行くっていうことですね。そしてもう一つは、伝説ではこの観音菩薩が自分が生まれ変わってあなたの奥様になりますというふうに伝えられたということです。ということは、親鸞上人は絵師に様を自分の、将来、観音菩薩として、見られてるっていうふうに、受け取ることができるわけですね。So, of course, then Shinran goes and becomes a disciple of Honen Shonin. And これは親鸞上人がですね、法然上人の弟子になられるわけなんです。で、6年間一緒に過ごすわけなんです。So he spent 6 years together as a disciple of Honen Shonin. And during that time, this Nembutsu teaching is considered a new branch of Buddhism. And there's quite a movement of people, average people, farmers, store clerks, regular workers, they all come to listen to this teaching because it is a teaching for everyone. But this didn't play well with the established schools of Buddhism. And so there was also a lot of jealousy that was going on. And in fact, the Nembutsu teachings, in the end, they encountered persecution. で、この6年間の間ですね、法然上人の下で念仏の見教えを、習うわけなんですよ、親鸞上人。比叡山でも念仏の教えを学んできたんですが、またそれとちょっと違ってですね、一種の修行ではなく、やっぱり一つの道として念仏を教わるのが法然上人の元だったですね。ただし、その念仏が非常に一般の方で間でですね、盛んになってくるわけなんです。でも、それによって今までの伝統仏教の宗派がですね、この念仏に弾圧するわけなんです。 で、しまいにですね、親鸞聖人35歳の時にある事件があって、この念仏が禁止になるわけです。そして、法然上人は四国に流罪され、親鸞上人は越後に流罪されるわけですね。So, at the age of 35, the Nembutsu teachings, there's an incident that happens, and it is actually outlawed, it is banned. And the Shinnan's teacher, Honen, was sent to the southern island of Shikoku, and Shinnan was sent to the northern part of Japan, a place called Echigo, where he meets Eshinni. Now, please take a look at this picture on the right here. This drawing on the right, it's showing the severeness of Shinnan going to the northern part of Japan. But there's something that is a little bit off on this diagram. And as you can see here, Shinnan is wearing robes here, okay? But in fact, as Jeannie had mentioned in her opening remarks, when the Nembutsu teaching was banned, Shinnan Shonin was actually defrocked. He was no longer a monk. So this picture of him in robes is a little bit misleading, I think. Of course, as Nembutsu followers, we want to make sure, you know, that Shinnan is put on a pedestal. But in fact, being defrocked, he wouldn't have been wearing robes like this, I don't think. この、親鸞聖人がですね、流罪されるときにですね、この右側の絵はよくこのような絵はよく見られるんですけど、これはですね、親鸞聖人が越後、非常に気候の激しいところであるということを、示しているわけなんですが、同時にですね、この映像ではちょっとおかしいと私は思うのは、親鸞聖人この絵では衣を着ているわけなんですね、まだ僧侶の衣。でも実際にその流罪された時にはもう僧侶の資格を政府から取り上げられるわけなんですね。So, actually, this is where they actually landed, and you can see Bud Sakamoto and Tomoko Kakehi. We went there in 2016 as part of our Japan tour, and this is actually the shore that Shinnan Shonin arrived at. これは2016年のですね、私たち日本のツアー行った時に坂本さん、バッドさんと筧智子さんがですね、この越後で撮った写真なんですが。So, as I mentioned earlier, it seems kind of odd that Shinnan would have been in robes because he was actually defrocked at that time. And if you want to think of it, he became an enemy of the state. And when I thought of enemy of the state, the one picture that came to my mind was this picture on the right. This is, in fact, what the POWs of Angler and Petawawa wore during World War II. So I remember Mr. Murao telling me that when he was sent to Angler, that at first he thought that they wore these outfits with the red dot on the back. This is actually a ruler on top of it. But I got this picture from online, but he thought it was because they were of Japanese descent. But afterwards, he found out that there was a target. If any of them tried to escape from the prisoner of war, it was a target for the guards to be able to shoot. このですね、先ほど流罪された時にその僧侶の資格を、取り上げられたということはですね、もう要は犯人扱いにされるわけなんですね。で、その犯人扱い、政府から犯人扱いということを聞いて、私が思ったのがですね、ちょうど第二次世界大戦の時にカナダの2世の方、日系人がですね、 収容所に送られたとき、そのアングラーとペタワーの収容所で、こういう、制服っていうか、服を着せられたんですね。で、これは、村尾さんが以前話していただいたことには、これ、最初は自分はこれ、日の丸がついてるシャツかなと思ってたら、日の丸じゃなくて、そのガードがですね、逃げ出したら、その狙いやすいために的がついてるっていうふうに、そういう、要はですね、犯人としてこんな衣を着てる姿ではなかったと思うんですよ、親鸞聖人も。結局この流罪っていう立場っていうのは、一方そのなんていうんですかね、死刑よりはマシかなと思われるけど、実際には本当には流罪というのは死刑と同じぐらい厳しかったらしいんですね。その京都の文化の、土地から遠く離れたところに、食べ物もなし、その犯罪者として暮らさなければならない。で、その当時はですね、その田舎の村に行っても犯罪人として扱われるのが多かったんですね。だから言われるのは、この多くの人が流罪されたら、最初の冬で餓死で亡くなられる方が多かったっていうことも、記録されています。なので、この衣姿の親鸞っていうのはなかったのではないかと思います。So, as I was mentioning in Japanese, that when one is sent to on exile, like Shinran was sent on exile, instead of a robe, he would have been wearing something that would have signified that he was an enemy of the state. And so it was said that although one might think exile is lighter than being executed, it was still very, very severe. In fact, most people who were exiled didn't last one winter because they would either starve to death, as of course, going into the villages in the rural parts of Japan, they would not have been welcome. They would have been, we see sometimes on our news when criminal is released into the public, sometimes they'll put a warning out on the news that somebody is now about to be released. So they would have been ostracized, and it would have normally have been very difficult for them to survive. But in fact, this is where he meets Eshinni. And Shinran gets married to Eshinni. And we know, as a matter of fact, that she must have been, in fact, a Nembutsu follower prior to meeting Shinran, because had she not been a devout follower, she would not have married someone who was in the state of exile. So most likely there was communication sent to the northern part of Japan that Shinran was going there. And so she welcomed him as her husband. で、この絵師様がですね、熱心な念仏者であることっていうのは、やはりこの親鸞上人と結婚されたことによってですね、それが、親鸞と出会う前からきっと、絵師様は熱心な門徒であったっていうことは、分かるわけなんですね。じゃないとこういう犯罪者と普通は結婚はしませんので、そういうことを考えられます。So, of course, after the exile was pardoned at the age of 39, Shinran and Eshinni moved to the Kanto area, eastern Japan. And again, here on the bottom left is a picture, a drawing that actually is something that comes out from the letters that Eshinni wrote to her daughter Kakushinnin. And it was said there was one time when Shinran had a high fever, and after mumbling for a couple of days, he suddenly said, "Oh, I'm doing this again." And what it was is that he was in his fever pitch, he was reciting the largest sutra over and over. And what he was doing was he was trying to recite it for the benefit of those ailing in Japan, but realized that he doesn't have to do that. この、親鸞上人の流罪がですね、39歳の時に、解放され、そしてその、後にですね、親鸞上人は絵師人と共に関東に行くわけなんですね。稲葉というところに。で、そこで、約20年間ぐらい過ごすわけなんですが、その中にもやっぱりこの絵師人様の各親人に書かれた手紙の中にそこの暮らしの様子も書いてあるわけなんですね。で、それによって私たちは親鸞上人がどういうふうに過ごされたっていうことが分かるようになるわけです。So, of course, in his latter years, Shinran comes back to Kyoto and he teaches, and Eshinni goes back up north to her place. And after Shinran passes away, the youngest daughter, Kakushinni, builds this shrine in her, a gravesite, basically, in her father's honor. And it is here that people come to visit. So getting back to Eshinni, so our Zen Urakata, she's passed away now, Lady Yoshiko Otani has written, did write a book on Eshinni-sama. And of course, she's talking about, as Jeannie had mentioned, the Kobushi no Sato. What it was is that they found this area in Echigo. And you can see, I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, maybe you can see it here. Okay. You can see these little pagoda type, or these little stone monuments. It was something very similar to this that they found, and it was said to be this little monument that Eshinni erected in memory of her husband, Shinran Shonin. And if you go there today, and this is a picture again from our 2016 trip, they've got quite a memorial set up for Eshinni, and there's actually a temple there. And there, inside that temple is this painting of the magnolia, the Kobushi magnolia, and it is a memorial set up for Eshinni. But all of this, oops. So, you know, having heard this, when we think about the fact that Eshinni, thanks to her dedication, her love for her husband, Shinran, she kept records of their life together. And in sharing these records with her daughter, Kakushinni, this is how we end up finding out a lot about the life of Shinran Shonin. Without those records, a lot of things about Shinran we would not have known. So because of her dedication and devoutness to it, through the many years, Eshinni has become sort of the ideal for the Buddhist women's movement. And so here in North America, as well as throughout the world, Eshinni is seen as the mother of Jodo Shinshu. このEshinni様の一生涯ですね、彼女が親鸞上人の生涯についていろいろ記録していただいたことによってですね、私たちもこの親鸞の生涯についていろいろ知ることができたわけなんですね。そしてまた、彼女の姿を通してですね、多くの婦人会の方々がですね、それに動かされて、もう800年後にもですね、続いているわけなんです。 So when we look at our own history, as I mentioned, in that list as we were chanting, there were 183 names, 183 individuals who were moved by the teachings, which were obviously taught by Shinran Shonin, but also his wife Eshinni had a very large part in preserving and making sure that this teaching was passed down. And thanks to that, all these people have been moved, have shared, and have also rejoiced in the teachings together. And today, as we enter this second, or not enter, as we are firmly in the second wave of the pandemic, it is nice to know that we still can receive these wonderful teachings 800 years afterwards. And it's a teaching that says that there is a oneness that connects us. It doesn't matter where we are physically. We can be across our continent. We have people from Nova Scotia joining. We could be wherever we are in this world. By putting our hands together, we can join together in one thought, in the oneness of all life. このエシニ様を通してですね、このスティーブストンだけを見ても、先ほどのお勤めの間に婦人会のですね、亡くなられた婦人会の方々のお名前を出したわけなんですけど、そこには183名の方ですね、の名前が出てきたわけなんですが、多くの方がこのお念仏の御教えに出会われて、また喜びを感じてですね、一緒に共に暮らしてこられたわけなんですが、今もこのパンデミックの中でですね、世界中どこにいてもですね、手を合わすと私たちが親鸞聖人エシニ様とまた多くの念仏者と一緒でいるということにですね、感謝の喜びをいただくわけなんです。So, I don't know how that worked for you. You could comment to me afterwards if you liked it or you didn't like it, let me know. But I thank you all for listening to my Dharma talk. And now I'm going to ask Hiroko-san. Is Hiroko Yoshiwara there somewhere? To unmute herself. Hiroko, can you unmute yourself, please? Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm mute.
Okay, so Hiroko is going to say a few words on behalf of the Fujinkai.
Thank you, Reverend Ikuta, for setting up the slide presentation for us. And also to Roy Akune for his support. And thank you to everyone who joined us this morning, as well as the donations that you have sent. So hopefully one day we will see you in person.
Okay, and Jeannie, did you want to, where'd you go? Is Jeannie still around?
Yes, I am.
Okay, did you want to just close our service then, please?
Thank you everyone for attending today's Eshinni-ko service. Thank you to Reverend Grant and to Roy Sensei for all that you're doing with all these Zoom services and everything, and to keep us appraised of what we're doing and to get together, because it's very nice to see everybody on Zoom. So thank you very much for everyone for attending today. Thank you.
Okay, please join me in Gassho as we close the service. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. 本日は皆さんありがとうございました。皆さんようこそ参加していただきました。来週からはまた英語と日本語を別々にしますが、特別な法要の時だけ、合同になることになります。So I was just mentioning that next week we'll separate English and Japanese again, but just for the special services, we will have them together. So I'm going to, let's see, where am I? If you could unmute yourselves and if you want to say goodbye or whatever you